fit back up a little bit. Okay, alright. Let's pay homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dhammaya, Namo Sanghaya. So my salutations to all of you from across the world. We've been very busy over the past week, and so I figure on the Sunday, last Sunday there was no service. This Sunday there was no service due to changing schedules and competing priorities. But just want to take this moment to remind all of you to meditate, and when there is no Sunday service, you would go back to previous Sunday service to listen to the talks, to reflect and meditate on the Four Noble Truths, to reflect and meditate on the Noble Eightfold Path, the 5 hindrances, the 7 factors of enlightenment, and Sila, which is morality, the 5 precepts. So much to do, so much to master through time. And so there is a lot to do. I know that all of you have been anxiously waiting for live talks to come, but I just wanted to take this moment to capture a moment in our week and ask Venerable Jorge, Venerable Lee, what they have studied so far, any new information they have updated, as this reflects how I teach, how I guide novice monks in the midst of them working and supporting their path. So Venerable Jorge here has gotten into the dependent origination and is vacillating between the 12 links and the biography of the Buddha, the start of it. But I think primarily this week he was more into the 12 links. So if he could take just a couple minutes to say what you're finding so far, what the 12 links has mean to you, and how you can use it in your life, and how other people can start to get curious with the 12 links of dependent origination.
Thank you. What I learned from the 12 links of dependent origination are that you can trace back, as did Buddha, the causes for the conditions of suffering. And by tracing back the links step by step in reverse order, you can come to the realization that the continued birth and death of not just our physical bodies, but emotional states, mental states. There are various stages where you can choose not to give birth to the conditions that continue to perpetuate the suffering. And by tracing those links, in my opinion, and the way that I'm viewing it, it's easier for you to make the decision at the level when the experience is unfolding, and you have to make a choice whether to try to cling on to an emotion, in the case of an emotional example, or you can say, it's just an emotion, it arises and drops away just like everything else in this life. The conditions that bring about these suffering is a truth. The impermanence of it, the fact that it constantly fluctuates, is the only permanence. And this is why it's true, because it is the one thing that stands beyond anything else, and throughout whatever time frame the teachings have been around, how we know that they're true is because they're still the same and they teach the truth. And nothing can ever shine but the truth. It is the one thing that does not change, is the truth. And the suffering, accepting suffering and understanding that the conditions that we ourselves set for ourselves is important. And I think the best example I can give is I imagined it like a seesaw. So you have this thing coming, happiness, and then when happiness is down, unhappiness arises. And then when unhappiness goes down, happiness. And it's like this seesaw of emotions, kind of like a wave too in the ocean, in that if you realize that it is a seesaw and that you're contributing and you're trying to just give the seesaw keep it in one side, not realizing that it has to come on the other side. It needs to, because by virtue of it, the separation itself is actually what joins them. In the case of happiness and sadness, loss and non-loss, and even life and death. Not so much life and death as a physical existence, but also in every single moment you can give birth to conditions that will continue to bind you to the chain. And so I've also learned that karma can play a role in that as well, in that it is based on, you come in with these karmas that your life and the conditions that are part of it is because of old karma. The present karma, which you can stop, which you have the ability as a human to cognitively say, well, I can prevent this from happening by choosing not to get startled or moved by what is happening. It is just phenomena. It just arises and then goes away. Like clouds, they come and then they go. Fog, it comes and then it goes. Frost, it comes and then it goes. And so, personalizing the fog is kind of like personalizing the emotion and saying, hey, that's my fog, or that fog is just not right, or it's ugly. And this is where the attachment and the clinging, and that decision to attach a label, and then not just the label, but the actual emotion behind it, so you're using body, speech, and mind to actually form a conscious awareness and take a side, is what creates a rebirth. And then I learned in the final three that you can now cease the future of any rebirth by taking the steps and understanding and viewing it as just phenomena that arises and goes down. Just like when you see waves in the water, they come up and down. Happy, not happy, sad, alone, not alone, in, out. Thank you, Master.
So, these two venerables are new to Buddhism. So their findings to me are like music to my ears, right? Now, a lot of people out there listen to jazz or rap or whatever the case may be. I sit in my room and they all get excited with news, Dhamma discussions echoing in the hallways. And I'm hearing all different comparisons, contrasts, and also the listening of Ajahn Chah's teachings, the collective teachings of Ajahn Chah. And so now we'd like to hear from Venerable Lee, what he's done so far. Venerable Lee's been doing cross-sectional research in ADHD and a little bit of Dhamma, and they've been discussing a little bit about Dhamma. So let's see what Venerable Lee has for us.
Thank you, Venerable. So, like Venerable said, I've been cross-researching with ADHD and also doing surface level Buddhist studies. And I've been watching a few videos on dependent origination. I've touched up on a few more videos under the Four Noble Truths. And as far as ADHD, I'm currently reading an ADHD book that was published in, I believe, 2015 or 2016. And it talks a lot about how quickly what they call diagnosis had blown up. ADHD was not even in the DSM Diagnostic Statistic Manual for mental diagnosis until, if I'm not mistaken, 1980. Prior to that, it was labeled as ADD, Attention Deficit Disorder, without the hyperactivity. Now, it has been becoming a big problem, even more in the present time than ever before. And even in the book that I'm currently reading, which was published in 2015, was stating that it's an alarming problem. The rate at which diagnoses are happening and medication is being handed out. Now, I'm not saying that medication is not the best way to treat it, but in the book it states that when diagnosed with ADHD, medication can be a very good tool to help, but at the most severe extent of the diagnosis. Now, the diagnoses in adults has also been on the rise, and I've done outside research online, and it's saying that the cause is believed to be by the rise in technology that we have available to us, our phones, computers, and everything else, because it feeds our senses so much information all at once that it can tend to, now they're still doing studies, but it is being looked at as a possible cause of ADHD in adults. As far as the Dharma Studies, I watched a video on dependent origination, and one point that I wanted to touch on was something that the Buddha had said during his time of enlightenment, which was he was contemplating under the Bodhi tree and contemplating whether or not he wanted to go forth and teach the Dhamma. He came to the thought that lay people in the world would not be able to understand nirvana and dependent origination. As he was contemplating this, a deity came down and pled and begged him to go forth and teach the Dhamma. And he said that there are people with little dust in their eyes, and to please go forth and teach the Dhamma. And the deity explained that, the Buddha came to the realization that some people are like lotus flowers buried deep in the mud. Some people are lotus flowers that are just under the surface, that need a little time to rise. Some are just under the surface, that only need a little bit of sunlight to bloom. And that not everybody is the same, and that with the amount of people in the world, that there will be some lay people or some people that he can go and teach the Dhamma to that will be able to understand it. As far as the Four Noble Truths, first being that there is suffering in life, or life is unsatisfactory. Second noble truth being that there is a cause to suffering. The third noble truth being that there is an end to suffering. And the fourth noble truth being that there is a path that one can follow to follow the middle way and attain enlightenment through the Noble Eightfold Path. Now, the first noble truth, upon studying and going into the world and trying to see for oneself, because the Buddha cautioned not to believe, but try it for yourself and see for yourself. Ehipassiko. Now, the first noble truth of suffering, and that life is suffering and life can be unsatisfactory. If one were to take the time to go out into the world with the intellectual knowledge of this truth, but then scan for it, using the first noble truth as a lens or an eye, then it can be seen just about anywhere, whether it's physical suffering or mental suffering. It can be seen in oneself as well. physical suffering being waking up in the morning with a backache, or you're at work and you cut yourself, hurt yourself, you're hungry, you have a headache, toothache, and, those are things such as physical suffering. Mental suffering can be things such as being separated from a loved one, ending a relationship, your phone breaking, something not playing out exactly the way you wanted to can cause mental suffering, a loved one passing away, losing a pet animal, and many, many more examples. Second noble truth, that there is a cause of suffering. The cause of suffering, simply put, is because we want things. When we want things and we don't get them, it causes suffering. Wants, desires. So some things as desires could be you desire to get something that you don't get, or you desire not to get something and get it anyways, such as a flat tire, or you're driving to work one day and your car breaks, you don't get the promotion or the raise you've been hoping for or desiring for. And the cause of suffering is our wants and desires. The third is that there is a cessation of suffering, which the cessation of suffering is the attainment of nibbana in Pali, or nirvana. Now, what is nirvana? Nirvana is when we are in the current moment, in the present. We are not living in the past, we are not living in the future. We are fully involved in what is happening right in the present moment. Now, if people who are watching these lives are listening to the rate of my voice, the tone of my voice, are fully involved, paying attention, not thinking about the past, not thinking about the future, this could be a form of nirvana. You're fully present in the moment in what's going on. This is the third noble truth, the cessation of suffering. The fourth noble truth is that in order to follow the noble path and the middle way, the Noble Eightfold Path is also known as the middle way, one must study it and practice it. And now everything that I say is up for examination, and you should try and prove me wrong, as the Buddha has taught us to do. I think that'll be about it.
Thank you for the review. Some students have been going through the Four Noble Truths, and so now they get their fun, like Abby, and got to go through the eyeballs of the two venerables here in screening what they could miss, have missed, what they've learned so far, and any corrections and additions to add. So it's been a fun collaborative effort between the students and the newly ordained monks in training, novice monks in training. So you all can look forward as they update their library. And this is great for all those who are new into Buddhism to watch their journeys in the forthcoming days. And all of us can use these as reminders in meditation and reminders to go back to the Four Noble Truths. It's just music to my ear. I never get tired of listening to it over and over again. At this time, I'd like to conclude our talk as we have other priorities to tend to. May you all be well, be happy, be free. May you realize the light of your own true nature. May you be healed and be a significant source of healing for other people. Sadhu, sadhu.